Unity of Houston is an inclusive church where we seek to understand and live the teachings of Jesus and other spiritual masters. At Unity, we welcome all people from all spiritual paths and every walk of life. We celebrate the diversity of our city and of our world, and we teach love, tolerance, and oneness, seeking to live in harmony with open minds and open hearts.
Wherever you are in your spiritual path, you are always welcome at Unity. Join us and discover that the life of your dreams is already within you.
So, tonight we are looking at something that can have a little challenge for us, I think, is working with the idea of desire. It's actually one of my very favorite experiences is this idea of desire. But I want to qualify it because there are many definitions and or experiences and ways of using it as part of our spiritual practice. So, there's kind of two schools of thought, really. And Emily Cady, who's a New Thought writer, who's a part of the Foundations of Unity, she writes in Lessons in Truth, what is desire? She says, desire in the heart is always God tapping at the door of your consciousness with his infinite supply. She says that desire itself emanates from the heart of God. So that is a particularly kind of Christian understanding of desire when it comes from on high, when it's a divine desire, something that comes from God into us and moves us, stirs us, awakens us, or brings us back into a deeper remembrance of why we're actually here, what we're here for. Now, in Buddhism, the idea of desire is very different, but there's also some cultural differences. And so let me say that the Buddha teaches desire is the cause of all suffering. And that's kind of, it's such an opposite way of looking at things that it's very confusing. It's like, how can something that I believe or feel comes from God and stirs in me is now something that causes suffering at the same time? I don't want to go back to the idea that God really does send suffering to us, right? That is not something I want to get all tangled up in. So let me be clear then that this idea of desire causing suffering really comes from the Buddhist teaching more about what is meant by the word of desire. And what it really means is that there's a craving. And the Buddha doesn't center desire as being in our hearts, but rather in our minds. It's our understanding of what it is that we cogitate about what's missing from my life, right? Our minds, our brains, our minds are so amazing, such amazing tools that we have to navigate in the world, to calculate, to troubleshoot, to make changes in our lives. And it's constantly scanning for dangers and for the things that we also need to live. And so while it's always doing its work, it is also provoking and invoking within us a sense of what's missing, what isn't here, what needs I have so that I can go and meet those needs or address them. And that can become addictive, it can become destructive, it can become, the kind of thing that drives away our relationships and interferes with really a happy life. And so you can then begin to see desire on that level of craving and of focusing and attachment to what is missing in my life, and if only I had a spouse, then everything would be better in my life, and I could be happy then, or I'll be happy when I have enough money and I don't have to work anymore, or I don't have to worry about it anymore, or if only I could have good health in such a way that that would free me and allow me to do all the things that I want to be able to do. But I can't be happy until that day comes. So there's all kinds of conditions that we begin, bargains that we put on our understanding of what desire brings to our attention, brings to our consciousness. The closer study really is that we begin to see how desire becomes the cause of all suffering when we recognize that we think, when we think, I should say, and again, we're talking about desire of the mind. When we think that, what is missing visibly from my life, when that comes, then that's going to make my life better. Then I'm going to be okay then. Then I'll be loved enough. Then I'll be worthy. Then I'll be rich enough. Then I'll have happiness in my life. And happiness will stay forever. Does it? Ever? Stay forever? It doesn't mean that you don't bounce in and out of happiness, but I don't know that any one of us is constantly at some steady state of happiness. I think it's kind of an ebb and flow of a lot of our lives, the ups, the downs, within a tolerable range, there's the flow of things. We never really get there, and so we're constantly in a state of chasing. And the Buddha says that it's not that you desire the wrong things, or that if you only desired the good things, whatever they are, the good valuable things, worthy things, that somehow that would bring your happiness. But the Buddha says, actually, it is the attachment to things themselves. It is thinking that something outside of you will fulfill you. And therein lies the suffering. Therein lies the mistake. You'll find that every time we are in a disagreement or in what would you call it? Not competition, I'll think of it in a second. That any time that we are not aligned with the truth, we suffer. We will always find the one up, one down, the missing, the light, the dark. We will always see what isn't here, what is not working, what isn't making me feel good, what is making me feel bad, what is making me feel great, but now I'm suddenly worried that I'm going to lose it. I can't hold on to it. How long will it last? How many can I have? How much can I eat? It's like all of these things suddenly become a struggle and a challenge. We find that the objects and the outcome and the consequences, or the people that we think we need in our lives, or the things that will make us different, or the conditions, or the changes that we want to see, will suddenly, when the conditions out here settle down, then I will have peace. Then I will be happy. If someone only would see me as I really am, that one person gives me the love that I really want, then I can be whole and complete. And we'll find that the attachment to that condition outside of ourselves is what causes the suffering. We suffer even when we have it, because we suddenly start being concerned of losing it, or having it disappear. So that's really where the Buddha talks about desire coming from the mind and the craving. It's really the attachment. And if we can simply recognize the desire that arises from the depths of our heart, now we're talking about something a little bit differently. Robert Brummett says, attachment results in possessiveness and the fear of loss. Conditions, as I said, don't make us happy. Happiness arises out of the present moment and ebbs and flows with all of our other feelings. It will come as it will also dwindle or leave. An example is when we get something or someone that we've wanted in our lives, eventually the happiness wears away, or the fulfilled feeling is replaced by another hunger or desire, right? It just starts to ebb. I mean, because we're constantly on the hunt for the next bright, shiny thing. We just are. We're calibrated that way, but we're calibrated up here. When we choose to live from our hearts, however, is where we really get to the bedrock of the truth. This is actually where the seat of our wisdom and of our intelligence and of the depths of our lives. Robert Brummett says, desire in the heart is not necessarily the same thing as desire in the mind. To experience desire fully without attachment to outcome is to allow life to express itself through your unfettered and unfiltered by past conditioning. In other words, just to allow yourself, to allow life to flow just as it is, messy as it is, illogical as it is, unwelcome at times, and all the things it brings in the door, whether it drags in the front door and leaves for you to deal with. Everything that comes also goes. And to be able to just be at peace and try to find our center in moving through it is, as Robert Brummett says, is what it means to live originally. He says, refrain from acting out every impulse you feel. Now, this is step one in allowing yourself to become free from the rat race that is your mind. And that would be to settle in and to just simply observe what pricks your consciousness, your awareness, what grabs your attention, and allow it to just be without acting, planning, deciding, judging, making a value judgment, deciding what is right or good or any impulse at all that you have in terms of reacting to it. Simply be with it. Simply observe. Only when you experience the desire fully and notice how it makes you feel, without immediately acting on it, can you begin to discern what the heart's desire is like from conditional issues. In other words, you'll begin to notice what is coming and generated from a centered place versus what is popcorning in your head. What is trying to draw your attention away, to run out, oh, I didn't put that on my calendar. Oh, I forgot to get that from the grocery store. Oh, I forgot to get gas. Darn, I'm going to have to go and make a plan now to do. You know how we do? That's our life. I just narrated your life. I just narrated my life a little bit. Isn't it how we are running around? And at the age that I am, I started doing it out loud, which is very embarrassing. I came in, my husband came home while I was getting ready to come here tonight, and he knew I was going to be speaking, and I was putting on my makeup. And he comes in, he goes, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to disturb you." He said, "I can see that you're working on your talk. You're giving your talk while I was doing." I said, "No, I wish I was. I was really just narrating a conversation that I would like to have in my head with somebody who's not even here, you know. No, I was just talking out loud mindlessly." So we spend so much of our time, honestly, in our heads when the actual richness of our lives is in our hearts. This is the place to be. So the first step in finding getting your liberation, I would say, is to first of all notice what the desire is, and notice how it is that you wish to act on it, but don't. In just this moment, set it aside. Just let it be okay. Take no action. Make no plan. Make no judgment. Just let it roll through. Watch what happens. Notice what feelings and emotions come up, and learn to not immediately act upon any impulses. If you find you're attached to an outcome, like this has to turn out this way, I've got to get control of it, then notice the experience of the attachment. How does it feel to need this to be a certain way? Just the need, but no action, but just that, this has to be, I gotta. Notice that drama, that maybe even toxic kind of a feel, some kind of a adrenaline, some kind of urgency, that has to be corrected. Where does that come from? And what is that really about? What is that really about? Because the world will still turn even if you don't get all of your to-do list done today. Think about how it is that you're responding and how much you allow yourself to be driven by unspoken needs. Ignore your judgments or internal criticisms. Don't judge a desire as good or bad, or even an attachment as being good or bad. It's only going to be good if it turns out this way. It's going to be bad if it turns out. What if you could just be okay, just for a minute, just to entertain? What if you could just be okay with things as they are and as they may unfold? What if you're going to be okay no matter what? Don't judge a desire as good or bad, or useful, or a problem, or a challenge. Just observe without acting and notice if there's an attachment or an outcome that is the only one that's acceptable. Because you know, suffering happens as soon as we have an attachment. Even if the good circumstance turns out, now we're afraid of the next one that's going to come. And the next one has to be good. And we're constantly in chasing. If it didn't turn out well, then we have all of the feelings that come and the judgments of ourselves and the criticism or the blame. Because there has to be, my husband often says, everything can work out okay if he just knows who to blame, you know. Just figure out whose fault that is, and then he can go on with it, right? I think we all kind of have those mechanisms in our head. Be aware that conflicting desires can arise as we have layers of experience and conditioning as we grow up, and because we develop 3 distinct sub-brains, Robert Brummett tells us, that frequently disagree with one another. I want to lose weight and wear that dress to the event coming up, but I'm also craving every dessert I see, right? So I've got 2 desires competing with my goal. And so how do I navigate that? How do I respond? With mindfulness, with awareness, with trying to stay clear about being in charge of my own life, of my own choices, of my own agency. And if I do that, if I can just allow the chatter and the distractions and the grabbing at my attention, if I can relax and just allow myself to watch my life go, I can just stay here a little bit longer, a little bit more. And in this moment, at least in this moment, I have agency, I'm empowered, I can make a choice, and I'm free. As soon as I lean in to the rat race, I am no longer myself. I'm being pulled by my nose. I'm being pulled by my thoughts. I'm being pulled by my fears, really. Robert Brummett says, this next step is to keep practicing self-awareness and self-acceptance. Give ourselves latitude, give ourselves space. To use the exercise of death as my advisor. If you were part of our Living Originally series, you would have heard that message being given. I think that was yours, Jean Marie. That it really is a matter of being able to see sort of the end result of things. In other words, you know, it puts things into perspective pretty quickly when you consider that how much is this going to affect my life in the context of my entire life, or the arc of eternity, or how is this going to matter 10 years from now, maybe 10 minutes from now? Is this going to matter in the big scheme of things? And can I just calm down for a minute? Can I just not attach? Can I just become peaceful and aware? Can I just let go? Can I just be enough right here, right now, even without having made my bed this morning, even without having gotten my gas tank full, even without getting the groceries I'd put on my list to accomplish today. He said, it takes the sting, the drama, the urgency out of the moment, and it gives context and perspective for us to just chill, to take a step back, to see what's really important, and also check in with our hearts. As soon as we stop thinking and start feeling and go back into our hearts and breathe into our hearts, that's when peace will begin to arise again. And in the moment of peace, clarity comes. And in clarity comes the opening for wisdom and guidance to drop in. Practice giving yourself permission to feel what you feel and love yourself anyway. Wow. I'll say that again. Practice giving yourself permission to feel what you feel and love yourself anyway. I think we're just so hard on ourselves. I think we just think too much and feel too little of our beautiful lives. Robert Brummett says the next step would be to ask, what do I really desire? And notice what arises. What really matters? Really matters. And keep asking yourself, what's beneath that? Well, if this really matters, well, what's underneath that? What's really driving that? What's really driving? And then you get what really matters, what's really true, what you really want, and find a way to start to give it to yourself. Marie Rilke said, let everything happen to you, beauty and terror. Just keep going. No feeling is final. No feeling is final. Should we tell everybody that that's how it really is? No feeling is final. You're not going to live in desperation. You're not going to live in fear. You're not going to live in depression. It's not going to happen forever. Every feeling that comes, that moves through us, guilt or shame or fear or boredom, even just those kinds of things that drive us to go find activities, none of them last, especially when we pay attention to them. What comes, goes. Robert Brummett said, as you feel desire fully without attachment to a particular outcome, you'll eventually experience the deeper need behind the conditioned response. He says, if I were to let myself feel the desire for success and recognition without taking action, okay, I feel the desire for success and recognition, but I'm not going to do anything about it. That's what he's saying. If I do that and then bring attention to the thoughts and the feelings and the sensations that arise as I sit here and just desire success, desire recognition, and do nothing, he says, I will eventually see the desire for success is really just a camouflage for the desire to be loved. And he goes on, if I allow myself to feel the desire of love directly and deeply, it will open my heart to the pain of a child who needed to be loved for being himself. Eventually, it will lead me to the very heart of love itself. It will lead me to my own essential nature, which is the origin of all love. He says we can then experience desire as a form of guidance that directs our soul on its journey of awakening. This is living originally. Going back to the origin story, back to our own original, authentic, beautiful, perfect self that was formed as the perfect idea for each of us in the mind of God and brought into physical form to live a human life and to discover what it means to live originally from our hearts, from the inside out, using all the gifts and skills that our magnificent physical being and minds and expression of our souls can bring into this life. We're not paying attention to the best part, y'all, especially if we're focused on putting gas in the car. Gerald May said, "The secret of falling in love with life as it is meant to be is to befriend our yearning instead of avoiding it, to live in our longing rather than trying to resolve it, to enter into the spaciousness of our emptiness instead of trying to fill it up." What if we just noticed how we felt and did nothing about it at all? And breathed and smiled and let go. Robert Brummett says, "Do not hesitate to seek peer support or professional help as you explore this part of your being." He says, "If pain arises, recognize that pain is not the enemy or means that you're doing anything wrong. It can show us how we have unwittingly turned our back on what is real and what is true." He says, pain is our teacher, and it helps us unlock our hearts and open our awareness, freeing us to be more authentically ourselves. He says, remember, our primary focus for all of the work that we've been talking about in this book, coming to the close of it next week, Reverend Jean Marie will be closing out our study of this book. He says, remember, our primary focus is not behavioral changes, but upon the transformation of consciousness, so that if everything changes from the inside by our observation, by our mindfulness, by our letting go, by our putting a pause between having a desire arise, an impulse shoot up, and an action taken, if we can put a pause in there and take a moment to look, we have the moment for a new choice, for a new way of being. He says, if you find your behavior becomes unethical or harmful to yourself as you are processing and trying to deal with not acting or trying to deal with these desires that are coming up, seek professional support, a 12-step recovery program, someone in your life that can really hear you and give you good wisdom. Whatever it is, don't try to do this completely by yourself. Be sure that you get support and help in this awakening, because if it's going to be truly transforming, it isn't something you already knew before you came in here tonight. It will be something you don't know that frightens you, scares you, or feels painful. And so when things arise like that, simply welcome them with respect and find someone to help you go through them. Because we're not trying to get somewhere or get over something. This practice that he's describing and inviting us into will help us become more aware, more and more. And in awareness, we're returned to our agency, our power, our choice, and ultimately our freedom. Desire of the heart becomes a deeply seated teacher within us, aligned with our authentic self that knows our purpose and will guide us naturally to learn and grow as we grow into that expression of love we came here to be. It can at times feel like an explosion of passion for serving or for bringing more to the world. This is the uncovering of the gift that we are to be in the world, the uncovering and the restoration, the revelation and into the world and the expression of the gifts that we bring. Howard Thurman says, don't ask what the world needs. Ask what makes you come alive. Go do that, because what the world needs is people who have come alive. Namaste.
Thank you, Reverend Karen, for taking us into the heart of desire. I love the suggestion about having like a sacred conversation with someone who has wisdom, and thinking about how those conversations tend to go. And that question, you had done a meditation once where I believe you asked, like, what do you want, over and over again? It wasn't, yes. Mm-hmm. And getting down through those layers, and that's those sacred conversations about desire can get down to those layers. What do you really want? And I think about my desires of my heart, and one of my desires of my heart is to help people heal through unity teachings. And it's very difficult to quantify that. Like, how's it going? I only know if people tell me, and that there's so much happening on the invisible level in sharing this work, that it's trusting God with that desire. Like, it is unfolding as we do it. It's happening, and really a lot of trust.
Yeah, that's right. That's beautiful. And the thing that I have learned about this mysterious ministry thing, that we're engaged in, we're all engaged in it in various roles in different ways. But exactly what you're saying is like, does it really matter? Does it really change? Is it just incremental? Is it just paper dressing sometimes? Is it just the good parent? A good parent, I get to become everyone's good mom, because they're willing for me to be that. And then, of course, there are times when they project, they're not good mom on me, and that can also happen. But the question that you asked is, does it make a difference? Does it really heal? And sometimes we get told, and sometimes we know, but most of the time we don't. And I would say that I like to think of all the times I didn't hear about it, because I think those are legion. I think that those are maybe just the beginning question, or even the rejection of something that I said to them, and they walked away and had 9 reasons why I was completely wrong about that, and I didn't see who they were, and I didn't listen to them, or whatever, and they took that away, and wherever they bumped and went into, like, what is that game that you play with the paddle? Thank you, that's it. That's exactly what I was trying to think of. Pinball. The way you just bounce around against the bumpers and it moves and fall, and whether it drops in or doesn't drop in. People still run through their lives like a pinball, rolling through and bumping up against just the right and perfect people to irritate and to challenge. And the whole time they're working whatever it was that I said. And I really believe this, that when we are on purpose, you're included in this, whenever you're on purpose and your intention is only to serve, that when you speak a word of truth, real truth, it goes into the hearer, and I don't care how much they resist it or how far they run away from it and how mad that makes them feel. They cannot unhear it. The bell has rung, and they are saddled with it, and you did your part, and you will never know how the story turned out, but you can only go back to who you are and what you intended, and give yourself kudos for that. You gave the best you had, and no one can ask more than that, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, and the truth is that ministry to which you referred, that we all carry, we can't help but do what's ours to do. I mean, we might think otherwise, but truthfully, that's there's only one direction to life, and so we're, as you were talking earlier about desire being a source of suffering, and, only when you're not in alignment, that's when you suffer. They're hidden in the shadows of that. Now, you didn't say it explicitly, but what the culture hears, what I hear, what I assert is sort of inherent in listening, is, and suffering is bad. And another part of Buddhist teaching is that life is suffering. It's the gig. It's sort of the agreement we make when we take on a body. And so I found myself thinking a lot. It's even in your talk title about living in the heart's desire.
Living in the heart of desire.
The heart of desire, as opposed to, there are lots of ways of spinning the prism, and so there were times when you were talking about desire coming to us and how that demonstrates, etc. But then there was a fair amount also about being in the heart of desire, as if we are a product of something else that is in motion. And so I found myself thinking a lot about set theory, what is that mathematical conundrum that there are, do you include the set of all sets? Are we in this world of suffering, and our definition of suffering being, and the very definition of suffering is and I don't want it to be that way. So I don't want to be in this condition of suffering, which is I don't want to be in a condition of not wanting it to be that way, and therefore I'm very much in that cycle. And if you're really committed to not suffering, then that's a road to hell. That is just a miserable way to be. But if on the other hand you can breathe, you can just step back and accept it as it is, then it's inherently calming, because there's only acceptance as life is, including a chronic, inescapable condition of suffering.
Your finger's on it. The only place I might just disagree a little bit is this, that the sense or the experience of suffering is chronic or constant. It is not constant. There is relief from it. But to your point, if I'm trying to get through this life without suffering, I'm already way astray here. It's already a ton that has gotten me to this place. But I will say that there are moments and stretches where I don't suffer. And as soon as I realize I'm suffering, I'm looking for, where am I resisting? What am I resisting? What is it that is here that I just need to accept? And I have my own conclusion I've drawn is that any time I have reached the boundary of what I have power to change, it's the recovery thing, which I of course can't think of right this second. You know what it is. Serenity prayer. That's it. It's that same thing, the wisdom to know the difference, what I have power over and what I don't, and the wisdom to know the difference. And as soon as I can stop and realize, oh, you know what? I was trying. I really want more for them. I wanted it to be different. I thought I could, and then I realized no. And so I find peace there. And I can sit in peace for a while, at least on that issue. On that thing that I have. So I would say that peace comes as we allow ourselves to just fall back and let go, and just constantly fall back into the center. Maybe it's just always coming back to center, always coming back to center. Because here, I'm the mistress of my own domain here, because this is where I have ultimate power over my next thought, over the thing I'm going to do or not do, say or not say, act from, value, love, hate, whatever, It's here. And I'm not in conflict or resisting anything else in the moment. And so allowing peace to arise. And that isn't to say that my life in the very next moment doesn't have rub, there isn't resistance or some other thing that I'm not looking at, or something else comes and dashes expectations I didn't even know I had until they were laying and broken on the floor, It's like, oh, I did think that was going to be different. Yeah. So I think, life is our learning. That's what we're really doing. That's why they're suffering. Because if it was, just like I told you guys, if y'all all walked in already knowing, then there was nothing to change in you. Then you came here already full, right? So I think the thing of it is that we're all becoming, we're all changing.
Thank you for watching this message today. I'd like to invite you to join us in person here on campus at Unity of Houston for Sunday morning or Wednesday evening services. If you can't be with us here on our campus, you can still join us live on Facebook or on our website, unityhouston.org, Sunday mornings at 11 a.m. Central.